Hello and welcome to Breaking Bread with Rivaj Maharaj, where nothing is off the table. For today's episode, I wanted to talk about something that I came across on the news the other day. And that was a statement by the AfD leader, Alice Weidel. I think it was at an AfD conference. And she made a really startling remark, which I thought would be good for us to just have a look at. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, over the weekend, I came across a little snippet of a speech that the AfD leader, Alice Weidel, gave at a conference, an AfD conference in Germany. And the part that stuck out the most to me was that she said perhaps we should get Volodymyr Zelensky to pay for the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline. Well, I paraphrase, but essentially that's what she said.
Und dann geht diese Bundesregierung noch dahin und gibt keinen Mucks ab, wenn ihr durch einen Ukrainer mit Hilfe von ausländischen Geheimdiensten, man kann jetzt so würfeln, wer das denn gewesen sein könnte, wenn uns die Energieinfrastruktur Nord Stream einfach vor der Nase weggesprengt wird. Wie kann man da als Bundesregierung leise sein? Die fehlende Zufuhr von günstigem Erdgas schädigt nicht nur Deutschland, es schädigt ganz Europa, aber Deutschland am meisten. Und wie kann man als Bundesregierung so wenig Selbstachtung haben, dass man nicht mal für Aufklärung sorgen wird? Ich kann Ihnen sagen, was wir machen werden, wenn wir Regierungsverantwortung haben. Wir werden Rückforderungen stellen. Dann sollen doch einfach die Ukrainer, der Zelensky, bezahlen dafür, dass sie unsere Leitung in die Luft gesprengt haben. So. Ein Land, das das tut, ist nicht unser Freund. Und man sollte wirklich gerade rausgehen und das wenigstens mal zugeben und ansprechen. Wir haben über 70 Milliarden in dieses Land investiert. Wir haben ihnen Waffen geliefert. Merz hat deutsche Soldaten in Aussicht gestellt. Wie kann man bloß so geschichtsvergessen sein? Im Übrigen auch deutsche Panzer gegen Russland rollen zu lassen. Wie können wir so etwas tun? Wie kann eine deutsche Bundesregierung sich für so etwas zur Verfügung stellen? Und noch was. Wir werden diese Milliarden zurückfordern. Plus Nord Stream Reparatur.
And, it just got me thinking back to when this Ukraine debacle occurred. When the Russians launched their special military operation into Ukraine. And, how it had whipped up a frenzy. Prior to that, we had the BLM movements. And then, that had fizzled out and Ukraine was the next big thing. Everybody had a Ukrainian pin on their clothing. Everybody attached a Ukrainian pin to their Instagram and Facebook handles and TikTok handles. It was sacrilege to say anything other than what the government narrative was on Ukraine. And I remember being one of these lone voices there saying, guys, there's always two sides to a story. Let's look at it. Oh no, the Russians are the aggressors. They're vile. They're this, they're that. Remember Biden's comments about how the ruble will become rubble and we're going to impose sanctions. How has that helped these 4 years later? Over 20% of Ukrainian territory now lies in the hands of the Russians. The Russians continuously bombard Ukraine.
Ukrainian foreign minister has strongly criticised Russian airstrikes on the country overnight, which killed at least one person and injured 15 others. Officials said the country was under air raid alert and warned of drones and ballistic missiles. In the capital, Kyiv, the city's mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, said that nearly 6,000 buildings were left without heating. Military bases were also struck. Ukraine's foreign minister said the missiles had hit not only the Ukrainian people, but also the negotiation table. while talks between Russia, the United States and Ukraine are resuming in Abu Dhabi.
And the only people that have suffered throughout this conflict are the innocent Ukrainians, those that were sent to the front line. Indeed, remember do you remember all those little posts that were coming up, all those little articles, those videos about young Ukrainians being captured, kidnapped, and sent to the front line?
Так мужчин почти не осталось. Забирают всех.
Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems.
Then they were sending people that were, they were sending paraplegics to the front line, those with mental issues, women. It's insane. And we went along with it all along. I remember when the incursion happened, one of my mates said to me, the Ukrainians, look what the Russians are doing. And I said to him, listen, sit back, hold on. The truth lies somewhere in between. And I promise you, when it's going to hit either your wrist or your pocket, you're going to feel it. And lo and behold, what happened? Remember those Indian, Arab students, those African students that were in Ukraine that were trying to leave when the conflict escalated?
They're not letting us go. Is it right? Is it right? They're not letting the black girl go. 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 They're not letting the black.
So many of us have been horrified by images of black students in Ukraine trying to flee war, and instead being met by racism. For decades, Ukraine has courted students from Africa as part of the country's tradition of providing affordable higher education to all.
These are innocent people. These are people that had contributed to the Ukrainian economy by studying there, by paying fees. So they were not a part of this conflict. And when they needed to leave, they were treated in a very bad manner. And then the penny began to drop, and he said to me, look at the Ukrainians. I said, but do you remember what you had to say about them? Do you remember how you were so pro-Ukrainian? Because you look at it from a lens, the government pulls at your heartstrings, makes you feel really, they need you on their side, because the government cannot go into a war. The government cannot support a party to any conflict without its populace being behind them. The Second World War, the First World War, the sinking of the Lusitania, the Americans went in. They came out of the First World War. The American economy was on its knees. The world economy was on its knees. 1929, Great Depression. Everybody was still reeling from the shocks. So in a way, World War II was actually a blessing in disguise for the American economy, because the Americans were on the other end of the Atlantic. They began mass producing. They began producing arms. Their industries were roaring. The fires in the furnaces had been roaring. And they were producing arms. And it was a booming economy for the Americans while the Europeans were at war. And Churchill kept saying, he kept saying to Roosevelt, we need you to join the war effort. And he said to Churchill, look, the American people do not have the appetite for war. And why should they? They're on the other end of the world. It's a conflict that didn't involve them. Pretty much like what's going on now at the moment. The conflict in Ukraine is going to come over. It's going to affect the Americans. We are fighting your war, and all that bullshit that gets spouted just to get people behind it. And once again, a lot of the fools got bluffed and became beholden to this war. Where are you today? Where are you today when the man who spearheaded the war is not grateful for anything you've done?
One of the biggest problems in today's Europe, though it's not often talked about, is the mindset some European leaders are from Europe, but not always for Europe. And Europe still feels more like a geography, history, a tradition, not a real political force, not a great power.
You know, he's gone out and bit the hand that feeds him. Listen to his speech. Listen to Zelensky's speech in Davos. Absolutely appalling. Shocking. You know, rather than saying thank you for your support. Oh, you know, the Greenland issue is this. Oh, that issue. Man, understand that you are not the center of the universe. You know, we were sending money. The United Kingdom was sending money it didn't have. We have kids going to school without eating a square meal, without eating a decent breakfast, indeed without having any breakfast. We've got kids that can't afford to eat 3 square meals a day, yet we're worried about feeding Ukrainians and empowering the Ukrainian bureaucracy. Why? So that they're fighting a war that we don't have to? Bullshit. The Russians have never ever wanted to come and invade Ukraine. Why on earth would Vladimir Putin want to be ruling over a vast landmass where the people do not want to be subjugated? It doesn't make sense. But we keep buying into this bullshit narrative that this is what it is. All the while, our infrastructure crumbles, our education system crumbles, the future of the United Kingdom, our youth suffer, and you're told it's a sacrifice you have to make. Tell me, does Keir Starmer make that sacrifice? Do you see Keir Starmer taking the train anywhere? Do you see Keir Starmer holding back on a meal? So don't fall for this bullshit. It's nonsense. And what Alice Weidel is saying is correct. The Ukrainians should be held responsible for the blowing up of the Nord Stream project. And I would add that along with those people should be the Americans, because Joe Biden did say, remember Joe Biden standing next to that moron Olaf Scholz, staring into space as Biden said, we have means of stopping the pipeline when prompted by the reporter.
Well, I'll take it.
Mr. President, I have wanted to ask you about this Nord Stream project that you've long opposed. You didn't mention it just now by name, nor did Chancellor Scholz. Did you receive assurances from Chancellor Scholz today that Germany will in fact pull the plug on this project if Russia invades Ukraine? And did you discuss what the definition of invasion could be?
Let me answer the first question first. If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly? Since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control.
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
So this is the kind of nonsense. And, you know, Olaf Scholz should be put on trial for putting the German people under the increased pressure they're under for having decapitated their energy infrastructure. It's just insane, these policies. So when you have Alice Weidel talks about how in 2022 their party had mentioned peace in Ukraine and they were maligned. Do you remember when peace was not an option? Do you remember? When the Russians sat down in Istanbul with the Ukrainians and the peace process was scuttled? Because there are vested interests that want to keep this conflict ongoing so that they can earn off it and profit off it. Not to mention Zelensky and his cronies that have made billions. So how the man can stand there on the world stage and preach all this garbage that comes out of his mouth because he has absolutely zero feeling for the Ukrainian people. If he had feeling for the Ukrainian people, if he was a statesman that they say he is, he would have sat down at the negotiating table at the beginning. Indeed, he wouldn't have even allowed his country to be hijacked. They had instigated a coup against a democratically elected government. They then brought this idiot Zelensky in, a real moron, who's walking around in war fatigues everywhere. Let's be honest. The man has no bloody war experience. He's a coward. He was hiding in a bloody bunker when the war started. Listen to what Naftali Bennett, the former Prime Minister of Israel, had to say. Zelensky was in hiding, terrified to come out because he was afraid that Putin was going to bomb the daylights out of him, that they were going to assassinate him. So he reaches out to Naftali Bennett, who then speaks to Vladimir Putin and says, listen, what's going on? And Putin says, we've got no interest in getting rid of Zelensky. And why would they? He's a little moron puppet dancing on the stage, on the world stage to all these tunes, just to line his pocket. So he's making a total ass and an imbecile of himself. Why would they want to take him down and bring in somebody who really genuinely probably cares about Ukraine? Let's deal with the idiot that we've got. Let's deal with the clown that's bobbing around on the stage, on the world stage. And then, lo and behold, what do you have? Zelensky out in his military fatigues, talking about how they are going to do this and they're going to... He's a little piece of nothing.
זלנסקי התקשר אליי וביקש שאני אצור קשר עם פוטין. יש לי את הפרוטוקול של זה.
בשביל מה? למה?
כדי לעזור. בשלב הזה הוא יודע שימיו ספורים ברמה אישית. הולכים להרוג אותו. וידעתי שזלנסקי תחת איום, הוא היה בבונקר שלא ידעו את מקומו. קשר לזלנסקי ישירות, ואני אומר לו, תשמע, יצאתי מפגישה, הוא לא הולך להרוג אותך. הוא אומר לי, אתה בטוח? אמרתי, 100%, הוא לא הורג אותך. אחרי שעתיים זלנסקי עלה למשרד שלו, עשה סרט סלפי כזה מתוך הלשכה, אני לא מפחד והכל.
Я залишаюсь тут, залишаюсь у Києві, на Банковій, не ховаючись, і нікого не боюсь, стільки, скільки потрібно, щоб перемогти у цій нашій вітчизняній війні.
Remember when when the Ukrainian special forces had released that list, Miroflorets, and they were targeting prominent anti-Ukrainian anti-war voices anti-Ukrainian war voices, and they were targets. Do you remember when Gonzalo Lira was captured by the Ukrainian special forces, tortured and murdered, and the Biden administration looked away as if nothing happened? Why aren't all those morons being held to account? So when the leader of the AfD asks for reparations because of what was done to the Nord Stream project, do you remember the Norwegians carried out an investigation? And lo and behold, at the end of that investigation, we can't let you know much because it's a matter of national security. You don't need to have an Einstein-like IQ. You don't need to be a super genius to figure this bullshit out. It's disgusting. Honestly, it's really, really disgusting. When you look at the things that get done in our name, it is embarrassing and it is disgusting. So, I may not agree 100% with everything that the AfD says, what they stand for, what they are. Frankly, I can't be asked. I'm here in the United Kingdom. It doesn't make a difference to me. However, when somebody somewhere in the world does decide to stand up for the truth and for what is right and just, I think they should be given a platform. So, yes, If you ask me, Zelensky should be held accountable along with all these other morons that helped him, because the insane position we're in today is as a direct result of him. All the bloody money that the United Kingdom gave to this moron so that they could buy supercars and luxury villas and invest in properties in the new developments in Egypt and all over the world is money that could have been put for use in the United Kingdom. It irritates me, it upsets me and annoys me when you have United Kingdom residents, when you have pensioners in the United Kingdom, people that have gone through the Second World War, fought through the Second World War, made these sacrifices so that generations coming later down the pipeline could have something, have to now go without heat, have to make a choice whether they eat or they heat their homes. You know, when there's no decent bus service to shepherd them around. You know, and then you get upset and then you ask, oh, why are the English upset? Because you allow this madness to occur in their home. You know, when I came to the UK, I came with the understanding that I'm moving to the United Kingdom. They have a set of rules and laws. They're a Christian country. I don't have to convert to their religion, but I need to abide by their laws. I need to respect them and the rights of this land. It's a very simple equation. It's incredibly simple. If you want to move here, accept the country for what it is. I didn't come here with the mindset saying I speak Afrikaans or I speak Zulu, so the entire country has to then change to follow me. No, that's not how it works. That is not how it works. We've opened the doors to all sorts and all kinds of disasters. And, you know, with this latest debacle in Syria, with these ISIS people, you know, they're still debating about Shamima Begum. She made a decision to go across and join a group of people that were marauding through a country, beheading, decapitating, killing innocent people, innocent civilians. That was her choice. So now let her sit and accept the ramifications from the choice she made. You don't need to be a genius. You made a bed, lie in it. It's as simple as that. We're still having a debate on Shamima Begum. That train should have passed a long time ago. You are going to see what is going to come through. You know, when the doors were opened to the Syrian refugees coming in, I remember saying to my son, do we know who we bring in? And do we know what they've done? Now, not everybody coming in is going to be a terrorist, but it was an opportunity to release those that were undesirable to Syrian society and ship them up here, because we did it with with open arms. We opened our arms. It's the same thing that Fidel Castro did to the Americans. When the Cubans were crossing over in the 80s, what did he say? He said, open the jails, let them go. Send everybody, send all the undesirables. And then what happened when a couple of years later, you see all these attacks? Yeah, you can say we radicalized. That's another thing. Our foreign policies are absolutely they're insane. We should spend more time on our own people than worrying about going around trying to do things to change the world. We've got so many issues within the United Kingdom that need to be addressed, yet we still want to go and poke our fingers elsewhere. And we haven't learnt from what history has shown us. Every time we've done this, we've had blowback. So coming back to Alice Weidel, what we need to do is hold Zelensky responsible for this pipeline disaster, for the Nord Stream disaster, along with those that were involved in it with him. Thank you for taking the time to join me on this little podcast, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, as it helps us with the algorithm and it helps our channel to grow.